Fellas, every now and then there'll be that one card where there's a fight that sticks out for being a banger. Like, you know it's going to be violent, you know it's going to be a bloodbath, you know it's going to be fight of the night before it even happens. So I'm going to be going through the most violent fights the UFC can make, and these are some realistic fights the UFC can put on in every weight class that I think will be fucking guaranteed violence. And we'll start off with the heavyweight division. I think that's one that stands out for heavyweight, and it's Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane. The fight that we were supposed to see at UFC 321, and obviously based off the fight at UFC 321, a lot of people are saying this, and I agree. This was going out to be one of the best modern heavyweight fights we've ever seen. Like, you've got the two most athletic guys, two best strikers in the division going at it, both guys landing on their feet, both guys doing well. This was turning out to be one of the best heavyweight fights we could have ever seen in modern history. It looked like it was going to be super competitive, and it, like I said, it was looking to be one of the greatest heavyweight fights ever. So when the eye poke situation happened, obviously I'm pissed because Aspinall didn't get to showcase his skills, and we didn't really get to get a proper winner for the fight. But I'm more pissed about the fight itself, because this was looking to be good, because, you know, before this fight, a lot of people thought Aspinall was just going to run through Ciryl Gane, take him down, sub him, or do whatever he wants, including me. And then obviously Ciryl Gane defended the first takedown, made it competitive on the feet, landed more strikes than Aspinall, and this was turning out to be one of the best heavyweight fights we could have seen. So I think if they rebook this fight, which they probably are going to do, and they should do, I think it's going to be a violent fight. Unless Aspinall obviously fucking rugby tackles Ciryl Gane and subs him in the first, I think this is going to be a violent fight. Two athletic strikers, two quick strikers, two of the more kind of modern generational heavyweights as well going at it. I think across 5 rounds, this could be an absolute banger. I'm not saying it would go 5, but if it was, I think this will be a bloodbath. So Aspinall, Gane, I think that's one of the most violent fights, and the most violent fight you can make in the heavyweight division. And I say violent as well because obviously there's probably easier fights for Tom Aspinall to take. There's fights where he could, you know, finish somebody easily. But if we're talking about a proper fight, both guys having success, based off the first fight, I think this will be the most violent one. So Aspinall and Gane for the heavyweight division. Then for the light heavyweight division, now, obviously, I could have gone with Yuri, but I'm going to go with Dricus du Plessis versus Yuri. Now, obviously, I've gone with Yuri because he is the most violent fighter in the UFC, but he's already beaten most of the guys, or fought most of the guys, at the top of 205. So I've gone DDP, moving up to the light heavyweight division to take on Yuri, because this would be one of the weirdest fights of all time. Every MMA coach on the planet would have a stroke. Like, you've got this weird, kind of unorthodox striker that makes it work in Yuri, against a weird, unorthodox striker in Dricus that makes it work in the middleweight division. You've got a guy with decent submission ability and decent finish, or really good finish ability in Yuri, and you've got a guy with decent submission ability and really good finish ability in Dricus du Plessis. Two really awkward, jittery fighters. Like I said, a coach's worst nightmare, because when we were watching them on the rise in the UFC, nobody really thought they were going to become a champion. I remember when Dricus was booked against Robert Whittaker, people were talking about him as if he's like going to get murked by Robert Whittaker, and obviously they've both made it work, they've both become champions before. I think if Dricus moved up to the 205-pound division, this would be such a violent fight. I'm obviously going to lean towards Yuri because it's his natural weight class and he's killing it in that division, but imagine these two going at each other, like the striking exchanges, not even just the striking exchanges, but just the antics, like the way they approach this fight, the stances, just the way they react to things, because they're both so weird and jittery, and they're usually doing it against more kind of, you know, more kind of just basic stance opponents, basic opponents, but you put the two weird guys against each other, I think it's going to be a chaotic fucking fight. So Dricus versus Yuri, pure violence at 205, and obviously Yuri's talked about moving down to middleweight. I don't think he ever makes that division. I think it's more realistic for Dricus to move up, so Dricus and Yuri is another option. Then for the middleweight division, I'm going to go with Dricus du Plessis again against Brendan Allen. I think this would be violent as well. Same reasons I said with Dricus about the Yuri fight. This would be complete chaos. Like, you've got Brendan Allen coming off that win over Rainy already, Dricus coming off that loss to Shumayev. I think this probably should be the fight to make next in the middleweight division. You look at Brendan Dricus' record, every single one of his fights are either a stoppage or a war. His only kind of boring fight in the UFC was kind of like the second one with Strickland, and that was more of a Strickland fight, and the one with Shumayev, which was Chimaev's fault in the first place. But usually, Dricus is always in fun fights. The fight of the year with Strickland, the first time they fought at UFC 297, the submission and the finish ability that he's got, even in fights that he's losing, he just manages to pull it out the bag, falling piano, the massive upsets that he gets. Like I just said about the Yuri situation, Dricus is such a weird fighter, and I think Brendan Allen would be a perfect opponent because he's also complete chaos. He's one of those guys, you put him against somebody good, he loses. You put him against somebody shit and he wins. He's one of those kind of weird, like the nightmare guy to bet on. But that war he had with Vittori a couple of fights ago was an absolute banger. His submission ability and his finishing ability on the ground, he's one of the best grapplers in this division. He just got that really good dogfighter win over Rainy Derrida as well as a massive underdog. And again, you look at Brendan Allen's record, he's never really in boring fights either. Like, he's either finishing guys or he's going out there and having fun fights. So I think Brendan Allen versus DDP would be straight violence. I think on the feet, it's super competitive. Allen's improved his stand-up massively, and Drickus is just like a falling piano on the feet. On the ground, they're both dangerous. I'd say Allen's the better grappler, but Drickus has not really been out-grappled apart from the Chimaev fight, and the Brunson fight. So Drickus versus Allen, I think this would be complete violence. And then for the welterweight division, I'm going to go Carlos Prates versus Michael Morales. I hope at some point the UFC make this fight, and I think it is a realistic fight that could take place soon. They've both got high KO rates, they've both got high finishing rates, both strikers, and I think they are the two best strikers, or at least the two most dangerous strikers at the 170-pound division. I know JDM's probably the better kind of pure boxer, but if we're talking about the best or the most dangerous strikers, it goes to these two. Like Carlos Prates, I think he's definitely the hardest hitting dude. He's got that touch of death at 170, and Michael Morales, also a dangerous dude, finished Neo Magny as well. But yeah, Carlos Prates, perfect mix of technique and danger, picks people apart and also has power. Michael Morales, he started finishing these fights again, also a dangerous striker. I think you put them against each other, it'd be such a fun fight to see. I could see Prates sleeping Morales, I could see Morales figuring out Prates out. I do think we need to see a little bit more from Morales, because his best win is a finish over Gilbert Burns, and obviously Burns didn't end up his career spot. But as a striking perspective, 18-0 undefeated Morales, who's killing it on the feet, never been outstruck, versus the most dangerous up-and-coming striker in this division against Carlos Prates, who's only ever been outstruck by Ian Gary in a 5-round fight where he nearly finished Gary. I think this would be a banger. So I think if Morales can maybe beat, Sean Brady, well, he's probably going to get a title shot, but they're both at the top of the welterweight division. So I think eventually, if this fight was to go down, I think this would be a violent fight on the feet. I see it going very similar to like the Prates versus Gary fight, but just a lot more violent and a lot less kind of feeling out. So Prates Morales, I think that'd be a banger. And then for the lightweight division, I got a few at 155. Gaethje versus Pimblett. Now, obviously, these guys are both, the top contenders at 155 right now. There's an argument to say that Gaethje gets the title shot. There's an argument that Paddy Pimblett should get the next title shot. It's kind of them two are the top contenders in this division, but I feel like them against each other would be such a banger as well, because, you've got Justin Gaethje, first of all. Justin Gaethje, every single one of his fights in the UFC, he's got a performance bonus for nearly every single fight in the UFC. On some occasions, he's got two as well. He is the most entertaining, or one of the most entertaining guys in the UFC. Goes out there to scrap, goes out there to swing for the fences. I know he's got more of like a technical approach these days, but still, the guy's either finishing guys, getting finished himself, or he's having scraps with people. So Justin Gaethje, you put him against anybody, he's probably going to be a fun fight. Even guys who he's stylistically, not meant to be matched against. And then Paddy Pimblett as well, I think he's fun too. You look at all of his fights in the UFC, most of them are finishers. And especially recently as well, the brutal beating he put on Michael Chandler, that was a war on the feet. And then the second the fight went to the ground, mauled Michael Chandler. The fight with Bobby Green, the second the fight got to the ground, got a brutal submission win over Bobby Green. And he's a scrapper on the feet, is Paddy Pimblett, and he's improved his stand-up a lot as well. He's obviously quite powerful on the feet, he's big for the division, but we saw in the Michael Chandler fight, his striking's improved as well. I think you put Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje against each other, it'd be a fucking bloodbath. On the feet, they're both cracking each other. Justin Gaethje landing the big shots on Paddy Pimblett, because Paddy Pimblett's defense on the feet ain't great, but then Paddy Pimblett firing back with his kicks. The fight gets to the ground, I can see Paddy roughing up Justin Gaethje. I think this would be a violent fucking fight. Obviously, I think only one of them should be getting the next title fight, and I personally think it should be Paddy, but let's say Sarukian was to fight Topuria and he weren't booked against Hooker. I think Pimblett versus Gaethje for like a 5-round interim title fight would be one of the best fights you can make in the UFC. Pure banger. So Gaethje Pimblett would be violent too. Any fight that you put Justin Gaethje in, it's going to be violent, but I feel like this one specifically would be sick. I've also gone with Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira for the BMF belt. I know a lot of people don't really like the whole BMF gimmick, but this is a fight that I feel like every MMA fan kind of has to get behind. It's an easy pay-per-view main event for the BMF belt. Max Holloway won the BMF belt, and I think he's quite deserving of it as well. Obviously, he just had that really fun fight with Dustin Poirier, that fight with Gaethje, the way that he battered Gaethje and slept him in one of the best BMF moments in history of the sport. Just one of the funnest guys is Max Holloway. Offensive boxer, great accuracy, comes to scrap, always invites them to swing in the middle as well and throw down. So I think he's obviously worthy of the BMF, and obviously Oliveira as well. One of the most dangerous and vulnerable guys in the UFC, just submitted Mateus Gamrot as well. Like I said, one of the most dangerous guys on the ground, elite jiu-jitsu, quite powerful on the feet as well, quite chinny too. He's the definition of a fun fighter as Oliveira, never in a boring fight, and always got every single one of his fights seemed to go to a finish as well, apart from the recent one with Michael Chandler. And this is a fight that obviously could happen as well. Oliveira wants the title shot with Max Holloway. It could definitely happen. It's been kind of rumored, and I think it makes sense. Holloway wants Oliveira. Oliveira wants Holloway. Let's make the fight 2026 for like a pay-per-view main or co-main event. Holloway versus Oliveira. Would it be violent? I don't even know who I'd pick. I'd probably lean towards Holloway because he's looked a lot better recently at 155, 2-0 since since moving up to 155, since his losses to Poirier. And he's looked sick. Like I said, 2 dominant wins over Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. Arguably one of the best boxers, not even arguably, definitely one of the best boxers in this division. Good 5-round pace. And he put him against Oliveira, a guy who's just reckless, careless, abandoned, in your face, constantly throwing strikes, then looks to implement the grappling. And he's the most dangerous submission artist in the UFC. There's no way this is a boring fight. Either Holloway's finishing Oliveira or Oliveira's finishing Holloway. And there's no in between. So this for the BMF belt would be a fucking banger. I've also gone with Dan Hooker versus Rafael Fiziev. I think this has to be, out of all the fights on this entire video, this probably would be the most violent one you can make. I mean, Dan Hooker, like I was saying with Justin Gaethje, he's always in a guaranteed bloodbath, and I think Hooker might be the funnest fighter at 155. Like that fight he had with Justin Gaethje, with Dustin Poirier a few years ago, which was a full-on banger. The fight with Mateusz Gamrot, people were calling Gamrot boring, and Dan Hooker forced a fun fight out of him. And apart from that, he's one of the most rangy, fun strikers on the feet, and he's never been in a boring fight. Look at his last couple of fights since 2020. Every single one of them has been fun. Even when he's losing, he's making a good scrap out of it or is getting finished. So he's never in a boring fight. And you put him against Rafael Fiziev, one of the best strikers in the UFC. Probably got the best Muay Thai in the UFC as well. I know Joe Rogan's going to go mad at me saying that and not Khalil Roundtree, but as far as Muay Thai goes, he's one of the most dynamic strikers, coming off that really good win as well over Bahamondes. Fiziev's a sick striker, and again, another one of these guys who's never in boring fights. He's not overly tentative on the feet, he's not overly cautious, he's always going out there, to scrap. You put Dan Hooker in there with Fiziev, this would be a bloodbath. I can see, imagine a 5-rounder as well, Hooker versus Fiziev. I can see Fiziev kind of picking apart Dan Hooker early on, and then in like the 3rd and the 4th round, Dan Hooker being bloody, walking through towards Fiziev, wearing him out just like Justin Gaethje did. This would be such a fun fight as well, and I think eventually, if Dan Hooker loses to Arman Tsarukyan, I hope the UFC make this fight. If Hooker loses to Tsarukyan, Fiziev versus Hooker in like a 5-round fight night main event in like Perth or something would be such a good fight, man. Guaranteed violence, guaranteed bloodbath. One of the best fights you can make in the UFC. And I'm also going to go with Quillan Salkild. I thought I'd mention him in this video after his knockout at UFC 321. Him and Mauricio Hufe. I wanted to see Salkild against Moicano because I think he'd win and I think it's an easy way for him to get in the top 15. But if they were to go down the aisle of Salkild versus Rufe, I wouldn't be mad because this would be such a banger too. Imagine the striking masterclasses that they've had. Like, you've got Salkild, who's on this massive winning streak in MMA, just got one of the best KOs, if not the best KO of 2025, where he absolutely slept Nasrat Haqparast with that head kick on short notice. Also knocked out the Indian in Anshul Jubilee as well in about 12 seconds as well in his debut last year as well. Just a dangerous striker as well, and he's got grappling too, which I think would be a threat to Hufe as well, because he has got grappling. He showed that in the fight with Yanal Ashmus. And obviously Mauricio Hufe coming off that bad loss to BSD, but he's still one of the better striking guys at 155. Again, similar to Quillan Salkild, has one of the better knockouts this year, that spinning wheel kick against Bobby Green with a head kick. That beat down he had over Jamie Mullarkey and James Lontop as well. Mauricio Hufe is one of the most dynamic strikers. I think in a pure striking matchup, Salkild versus Hufe, 2 great kickers, 2 great strikers, 2 dangerous guys on the feet as well. This would be such a fun fight as well. So Hufe versus Salkild, pure violence at 155. And then for Michael Chandler, because you've got to include him, I'm giving him Benoit Saint Denis. Now, I know a lot of people would say that Saint Denis would absolutely pummel and maul Michael Chandler, and you're probably not wrong, but just for how violent this fight would be, I kind of want to see it, man. It would be a bloodbath. Most of the blood coming from Michael Chandler, but one thing you can't say about Michael Chandler, inconsistent record, he's never in a boring fight. Same for Benoit Saint Denis. He's never in a boring fight. Both guys are very dangerous on the feet. We've just seen Michael Chandler get roughed up by Paddy Pimblett on the ground. We saw Benoit Saint Denis get roughed up by Moicano on the ground. They've both taken beating. They've both dished out beatings. Can you imagine this fight though? Like, even first of all, just the striking exchanges. Benoit Saint Denis, kind of his pressure striking style. Heavy-handed guy who walks forward and picks people apart. Obviously, Michael Chandler never takes a backward step. One of the most explosive dudes in the UFC. The striking alone would be sick. But even when it goes to the ground, Benoit Saint Denis roughing up Michael Chandler. Chandler roughing up Benoit Saint Denis. They've both got a good 5-round pace as well, I assume. So Chandler versus Saint Denis, even though I do think Saint Denis would maul Chandler, I think for how durable Chandler is, this would be such a fun fight. So Michael Chandler, Benoit Saint Denis probably would be a beatdown, but also Val. And then for the featherweight division, I'm going to go with Diego Lopez versus Yair Rodriguez, which probably should have been the fight to make instead of Lopez versus Silva if we're talking stylistically and at their career spots. This is still a fight I want to see. First of all, the rivalry. Like, the build-up between the two of them would be fun. It would sell because we obviously saw at the UFC 314 press conference, they were both going at each other. They were both having a massive rivalry. And you've got Diego Lopez, who just had that brutal beatdown over Gene Silva, that fun finish over Brian Ortega as well. He just comes to scrap. He's a blockhead. He walks forward, throws, has fucking crazy power in his hands. Good on the ground as well. Like, everywhere the fight goes, win or lose, Diego Lopez always in a fun fight. And then you've got Yair Rodriguez. He's probably the most dynamic, technical kickboxer in this division. Such a slick kickboxer, so long and rangy on the feet as well. Again, he's one of these boring, overly technical strikers as well. Yair versus Lopez would be pure violence, and I hope we do see this fight eventually. I think even like a #1 contender fight next, Diego Lopez versus Yair, this would be such a good fight as well. Like I said, both guys great strikers. You've got Yair who utilizes his range. You've got Diego Lopez who doesn't stop walking forward. It will be a fucking bloodbath, just like a lot of the fights on this list. I'm also going to go with Steve Garcia after his main event against Gene Silva. Someone on Twitter said that this should be the fight to make next, and I couldn't agree more. Imagine how violent this fight would be. Steve Garcia, who's got 79% of his wins by KO, on this massive winning streak as well. Like I said, the vast majority of them by KO. Just finished David Onama. He's just a powerful ass dude who walks forward and throws down on the feet, and it works. Powerful ass dude for the featherweight division. Probably got some of that unnatural power as well for this division too. One of the most dangerous guys we've got coming up. Literally a finishing machine. I think he's on one of the biggest winning streaks in the UFC as well, and I think finishing streaks as well he had before the Calvin Kattar fight. And you put him against Gene Silva again, a guy with 75% of his wins by KO. Again, very heavy-handed, dangerous dude on the feet. Before the Diego Lopez fight, was just starching everybody. Looked untouchable. People saying he's the best fighting nerd as well. Again, never in a boring fight. And a lot of people are already catching on to this fight and saying it should be next. And I agree. Just imagine Steve Garcia versus Gene Silva for a second. Even like a fight night main event. Pure violence, man. Two guys with high KO rates in the UFC. I think combined, they've only had I think 15 fights in the UFC combined or less. And I think 13 of them have gone in their favour by KO as well. So Garcia versus Silva, complete banger of a fight. Two guys who walk forward, two guys who are dangerous on the feet. And they have got different styles though. You've got Gene Silva, who's more of kind of like that rangy style, bursts in and tag people, and then you've got Steve Garcia who just walks forward, throws down with reckless abandon, and always seems to go in his favour. This fight, even like a main event, would be a banger. And then for the Bantamweight division, I'm going to go with Vinicius Oliveira for Marlon Vera for the Bantamweight division. And again, this is talking about fights we haven't seen already, so even though people are going to say like PTN and O'Malley, I'm talking about fresh fights. I think Vinicius Oliveira versus Marlon Vera will be sick, because you've got Marlon Vera, who's a human punching bag with nasty kickboxing. That is essentially what Marlon Vera is. He walks forward, he takes a beating, and it's almost like the more he gets hit, the more dangerous he becomes. And that's kind of the theme of every Marlon Vera fight, even though he doesn't throw enough. But yeah, he's a dangerous dude on the feet, is Marlon Vera. Even though I don't think he throws anywhere near enough, he's durable. He's always got that nasty kickboxing, which when he does decide to throw, it works. I mean, he just dropped Diamond Zahabi with one of the few strikes he threw. So his offensive kickboxing is good. And he also gets hit a lot as well. He's very hittable. The reason he's always in scraps is because he don't defend himself. He don't care about being hit. I remember that knee he took against O'Malley. And you've got Vinicius Oliveira, who's again a slick kickboxer with heart as well. Probably one of the better striking prospects we've got coming up in this division. That beatdown he had of a Said Nurmagomedov despite having a broken rib. One of the best KOs in the UFC's modern history over Sapaj last year with that flying knee. He's never in a boring fight. He's Vinicius Oliveira. Great kickboxer, always slick. He's also kind of got that fighting nerds-esque style where he's walking forward, just picking people apart. But Oliveira versus Vera, I think it'd be fun. I can see Vera walking forward, Oliveira walking forward, Oliveira kind of picking apart Marlon Vera, then Marlon Vera tagging him as the fight goes on. I think this would be a bloodbath as well, and it makes sense as well if you look at the rankings. Oliveira is obviously, I think, ranked number 13 coming off this big winning streak. Vera's just lost to Zahabi, so he needs to fight down. This could be a fight that happens next, and if he did, it'd be fun as shit. So Oliveira, Marlon Vera, I think that'd be a fun fight. And then I've also gone with PTN versus David Martinez as well. Obviously not a fight that should be next. I think PTN, well, he's getting the title fight anyway. But PTN versus David Martinez, I think, stylistically, would be a fun fight for 135. Because you've got the two best boxers, in my opinion, apart from maybe O'Malley. The two best boxers at 135. Like, PTN, without a doubt, is one of the best boxers. He might not be the most dangerous dude in the sense of these, like, starching people. But he just walks forward and breaks people apart. Calculates people, figures them out, lands the combinations, lands flush, picks people apart. One of the best boxers, if not the best boxer in the Bantamweight division right now. When he, even in the fight with O'Malley, was able to tag O'Malley and make him look human on the feet. And you've got David Martinez, who's only had a handful of UFC fights. One of them being him sleeping and starching Simon Oliveira. And one of them being him outboxing the boxer in Rob Font himself in his second fight in the UFC on short notice. He's had a super impressive run in the UFC so far as well. Obviously, I'd pick PTN to win this because it's PTN. But I think the pure boxing exchange on this feat would be sick. Like the low kicks from David Martinez. The pressure from PTN, the pressure from David Martinez, both of them just throwing. I think from a boxing perspective, they both come to scrap. They're never in boring fights. One of the best boxing fights you can make at 135. And then for the flyweight division, Brandon Moreno versus Joshua Van. Again, with the theme of boxing, you've got the two best boxers, undeniably, in the flyweight division, and who are always in bangers as well. Like Joshua Van just had one of the best fights of 2025 against Brandon Royval at UFC 317. Absolute scrap. One of the best 3-round fights we could have seen. And obviously, Brandon Moreno, another dangerous dude on the feet, you know, always in fun fights as well. Yeah, both of these guys, slick boxing. Joshua Van, picking people apart. Again, man of the most dangerous dude in the sense that he's finishing people, but he's got this high volume style where he just walks forward, landing on people. And obviously Brandon Moreno as well is the only other guy in this division you can really compare to Joshua Van as far in boxing goes. I hope eventually we see these fights. I think if Joshua Van can beat Pantoja and Moreno can beat Tyra, Moreno versus Joshua Van for the flyweight belt would be one of the most entertaining title fights you can make in the UFC. 5 rounds of this, because let's be honest, they ain't finishing each other. I doubt they're going to finish each other. It's going to be both those guys walking forward with that high volume boxing style. I think this has potential to be one of the greatest flyweight title fights in history. So, well, those are the most violent fights I think the UFC can make right now. I think, again, some of these fights are even realistic as well that I think they could make. So, let me know your thoughts. Do you agree? Disagree with the fights? Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching.